Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Pyohio for having me. My name is Joe Kaufeld. You can find me here online, and this is my cat Gracie, who you would have seen if you were at the lightning talks yesterday. You will get to meet the other two in a little bit. So today we're going to talk about finding practical applications for your passion projects, and we're going to do that in a little bit of a roundabout way. We're going to talk mostly about getting your passion project set up so that you can then find an application for it. So this is what we're going to cover. Finding the practical application is the goal of it's the end result. Hopefully we get there in one piece, and all of the groundwork that we need to do beforehand helps get us set up so that we can succeed in the end. So these are the things that I wish I had known. These are the things that I really deeply had to learn the hard way, and it wasn't really fun. But I'm hoping that by condensing them into this kind of format and passing them on, that's something that you can use and synthesize and build upon for your own things. So, show of hands, who is familiar with Reddit? Pretty much everybody. All right. So I'm not going to get into the weeds on background simply because we don't have enough time. But in 2017, a fellow named James and I started a subreddit. I'm going to go over here. Is that better? Nope. They don't tell me how to adjust the volume, so we're just going to hope that we don't have more feedback. In 2017, we started a subreddit that would go on to both change my life and change the lives of thousands and tens of thousands of people across the world. And it would end up taxing Reddit as a platform. It would end up pushing the API to limits that the engineers had not previously considered. And it would end up making a lot of changes for a lot of people. So the system that we founded is called Transcribers of Reddit. The entire goal is to use crowdsourced volunteers to increase accessibility on the internet. The most common format that everyone can use is text. You can distill everything into text, and text can be absorbed by everyone. This is the most base method of communication, especially when you're on the internet. It's the easiest to absorb, it's the easiest to communicate with, and though you may lose a little fidelity, you can at least communicate, and you can have everyone be a part of the conversation. So over the 6 years that we were active, we took 6,000 volunteers, and we completed over 250,000 jobs. So many, in fact, that the early versions of OpenAI's models would regularly regurgitate our formats when you prompted it to transcribe something, which I thought was endlessly funny. We also are still getting reports of different AI models regurgitating word for word the formats that we used on all 25,000 or 250,000 of those jobs. We also partnered with a lot of really amazing people around the world, including the Library of Congress and many other library systems, the Immigrant Project out of Washington, D.C., and just so many amazing people. So I'm not really actually going to touch on this much more. If you want to look it up, and if you want to see this whole sordid tale, just do a search for Transcribers of Reddit. You'll see us in Wired, you'll see us in TechCrunch, and you'll see us in a lot of other places. So anyway, there are 5 major things that I distilled over the course of working on this project for a few years, and things that I learned while navigating 68 countries worth of volunteers on every continent, including Antarctica. We had 2 researchers at 2 different bases, one for the UK and one for Australia in Antarctica, who did work for us, which was super cool. So number 1, understanding your passion. This sounds superficial. Honestly, it does. But in order to really move forward, you have to be able to answer some really difficult questions, and you have to be able to do that at a level that is much, much deeper than you probably feel comfortable with. So the first question, what do you want to do? This thing needs the 5 whys that go with it. You need to not only understand what you want to do, but you need to understand what's at the level underneath that. What's at the level underneath that? What's at the level underneath that? What is the actual thing that you want to achieve with your passion project? Secondly, why do you want to do it? Because I want to is not a good enough reason. As time goes on, you're going to run into really, really difficult moments. You're going to run into really difficult situations. And because I want to is not a reason to keep going. It's not going to keep you coming back to this project over and over. You need to understand why you feel that this is your passion, why you feel really drawn to this as a thing that you want to achieve. What makes this idea worth pursuing? Honestly, I don't really think that we need to get into this one because it's pretty self-explanatory, but has it been done before and by whom? This one I feel is much more important because we all are here because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And as I'm sure you've all seen and heard over and over, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. The same thing applies here. You need to understand who has done the things before you so that you know what not to do and you know what ground they didn't cover. This is what you're building on. If you don't take the time to understand who came before you, there's a lot of ground you're going to retread needlessly, and you're going to waste a lot of time. And when you do find out about it, you're going to feel really silly. So something that Abigail in the opening keynote said really stuck with me, which is that you don't have to figure out everything at the very beginning. You just have to be willing to go for it, but do your due diligence research first. Know whose shoulders you stand on and where they left off. Because eventually, if everything goes right, your work is going to be what other people stand on. And it's going to be your shoulders that someone else then builds on. So that's super important. And if someone has done it before, is it worth doing again? Because sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's not worth doing again, but there are other things that are tangentially related to that are worth doing. Maybe that the thing that you fell in love with doesn't need improvement, and that's okay. There are other cottage industries around so many different pieces that there's always something to work on. And if you really feel that strongly about it, there's stuff to do. So something that you can kind of think about as you're looking at your project is, are you improving on it? Are you taking a different approach? Are you serving a different population? So number 2 is pop your bubble. As humans, we tend to maintain our personal bubble of people who think like us. We are drawn to people that feel familiar. This is not the way to run any successful venture, but it's specifically not a good idea when it comes to running your passion project. Because at its base level, you can really distill this down into you need people who aren't you. The people who think like us, and the people who look like us, and the people who have the same life experiences as us are not going to be as helpful when it comes to debugging issues, when it comes to being creative, because creativity doesn't live in a bubble. You need different life experiences. You need different ideas. Things that are obvious to you are not going to be obvious to other people, especially if they think differently from you. And the things that are obvious to other people are not going to be obvious to you. As an example, when we started Transcribers of Reddit, we started it, admittedly, on day 1 as a typing practice system, to be completely honest. It had roots in accessibility, but I didn't really recognize that at the time because I didn't have the language to communicate that. But on the surface, we explained that it was a way to practice typing and help everyone else around you at the same time. We got a message, a very loving message, from one of the leaders of the blind community on Reddit the day that we opened, who basically said, do you understand what you've done here? Do you understand the possibility for having a real impact? The things that you can do here. And to be quite frank, we did not. We did not understand that. We brought on that person, and his name is Sam. He'll come up again in a second. But Sam helped us understand what exactly we were looking at and helped give language to the ideas that we were building. Because we had an idea, we had like kind of a vague understanding of what we wanted to accomplish, but we didn't know what it was, we didn't know how exactly to explain it to other people, and what we were really trying to accomplish. So, you can only succeed with people who think differently from you. Something else in a similar vein is that you have to find a common reason for chasing this passion, for truly pursuing this. Because the people who join you, the people that you find who are interested in the project that you're doing, if their level of interest is they think the project is cool, they're not going to stick around when things get really tough. They are not going to stick around when it gets hard because their reason for being there is different than yours. If you want to assemble a core team, if you want to assemble people that you actually are going to work with, the reason for being there has to be the same, or at least very similar, because that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you coming back 2 years later. There was a period where I was working on this for a little over 2 years straight, where every day it was 8 hours at work, come home, 8 hours on this, sleep. Every day. For much longer than I wanted it to be. But that's what we needed as an organization. And the thing that we were building, I was so over it. I was so done. I did not want to think about it. I didn't want to look at it. But the reason for coming back didn't change. That's what keeps you going. Sometimes this does involve taking uncomfortable steps. In 2018, Slack, which was our chat program of choice, as it is for many organizations and many groups, Slack announced that they were going to deprecate their IRC gateway. And for the vast majority of their users, this was a footnote. This meant objectively nothing to most people who used Slack. But in 2018, their accessibility for screen readers was essentially garbage. Same with Discord. Actually, Discord was worse, but not by much. So there weren't a whole lot of options for us to look into in terms of having a team, a singular way to communicate as a team. Our staff members were spread out across 6 countries and many time zones. So there was no way to have somebody like on a call. We needed text, and Slack did the job. But in 2018, Slack said, hey, we noticed you're using the IRC gateway. It's going away. There's nothing you can do about it. There is no replacement. Sucks to be you. So Sam, our one blind member, reached out to us and was like, hey, you may remember that I use this. This is the only way I have to communicate with you. We need to figure out a solution. And so we sat down and we had a really long conversation about what our options were. And most of Sam's options, most of the suggestions that he brought to the table were things that left him behind because he was used to it. In organizations that he had worked with and in projects that he had worked with and in jobs that he had had, being left behind was what happened. And most of his ideas were, well, you know, I can just communicate with you and then you can disseminate my ideas elsewhere and like just give me a list of like what's going on, and like this was a problem. So the uncomfortable step was looking at what we were doing, looking at the importance of what was happening, and deciding whether or not this was something that we really felt strongly about. And the answer was yes. We halted all work for 2 months so that we could investigate different options. We could work with Sam to figure out what his screen reader could and could not work with. We ended up moving to Rocket Chat, which was much less stable, much less finished, but it was something that all of our team could use, and it had a mobile app. We spent 2 months rewriting all of our integrations for Slack, all of our documentation for onboarding new members, all of our expectations of how the team was meant to work, because there was so much that was tied into Slack. But our options were leave someone behind or move. And so we put our money where our mouth was, and we moved. And it was an absolute pain in the butt, and I would absolutely do it again in a heartbeat, because that solidified to Sam that we were dedicated to having him at the table, that we were absolutely dedicated to having him be a voice in the conversation. We were not willing to lose him, even if it meant putting a massive amount of work, just setting it aside. That was really uncomfortable, and you have to be ready to take those steps, or at least understand where your line is. Number 3, find the right tools. I understand that this one's kind of funny to be having at a Python conference, but the technology you know is not always the right option. I know it's inflammatory, but the thing is, there are so many things in the third-party ecosystem, for Python especially, that most of the wheels that you could possibly interact with have already been built. At the very least, spokes. You can pull different pieces and build your own wheel out of different things, but you don't need to do everything yourself. There are so many pieces. Like, can you build an enterprise-grade CMS with Flask? Yeah, you can, technically. It's gonna hurt, and it's gonna suck to maintain, but you can do it. It's not the right tool, though. Understand what is the right tool by doing your due diligence. This goes back to research in the beginning. Understand what is and is not a good idea. Accept early that you will need to rewrite everything, and that this is not failure. It's okay if you have to rewrite something, because the technology that maybe existed then, or the issues that existed then, you don't have now. The technology has changed. Your skills have changed. Your experience has changed, and your understanding of the problem that you seek to solve has changed. But back to that choose the right technology thing. Don't reinvent the wheel. This is all in bold because it's really important. Do not reinvent the wheel. This also comes with understanding when you are about to rebuild the wheel. It's very easy to start off with good intentions. It's very easy to start with building something, and then you start adding on to it, and then you eventually begin to approach that enterprise-grade CMS that you've built with sticks and twigs and chewing gum and duct tape. And you should really stop. Look around, understand where you are, and look at the fact that you are about to reinvent the wheel. And by reinventing the wheel, you are causing yourself a ton of extra work. You do not have time for the extra work. You have to stick with what's appropriate, because otherwise you're going to spend a whole bunch of time just sinking into this quagmire of pain that you've built for yourself with this beautiful custom-designed thing that does the same thing as this other third-party package that does it way better and has support and has a Stack Overflow section. So, I'm I'm running low on time, so we're going to skip that example. Number 4, create a framework. So this is about process and tooling, and it's not mutually exclusive. The thing about a framework is that you need something to keep people organized, and you need something to keep people in line, even when they're not really feeling like it. This doesn't have to be complicated. This can be a few little rules, just something you can stick up on the metaphorical wall and you can point to and you can say, look, this is how we do things. This is what we do as a team. So this can be large or small. So some examples of small are just pull request templates. You can stand these up in 10 minutes or less, and there's even just things you can copy and paste on GitHub. A single place for a project's community. Don't let your community fracture because they want to be over here and you want to be on Matrix. Like, if they want to be on Discord and you want to be on Matrix, that's great, but your community's over here. Like, where are you? You need to pick a spot to be, and you need to go with the will of the group sometimes. Some fights just aren't worth picking, and this is one of them. Project code standards, even just having something, again, that you can stick up on the metaphorical wall, call it a day, be like, yes, this is the way that we do things. And if they don't like it, you point at the sign that you stuck up on the wall, and you're like, this is how we do it. Some examples of larger things are like a ticket tracker with sprints, an active project management role, or even a legal organization that oversees the project. The last one is something that we had to take. In 2017, the year that we launched, it only took 6 months before we realized that this was spiraling out of control. And it was costing a lot of money, mostly me, and mostly out of my pocket. So we had to form a 501c3, a nonprofit, specifically to manage and oversee from a legal and financial standpoint our Reddit project that was absolutely blossoming with activity. We had so many people that were interested in participating, but we needed real staff, and we needed real support, and we needed real tools. And sometimes that is the next step. Sometimes creating your own tooling is necessary, and I want to make a point here because this is not reinventing the wheel. This is understanding where your limitations are and understanding that you need something different. An example here is that we used the ErrorBot platform, ERRBOT, for our chatbots. And this worked reasonably well. The problem with the ErrorBot platform is that it is many things to many people, which by definition cannot be everything to one person. So for 2 years, we struggled with this. We had one chatbot that we used for everything. It had deployment scripts in it. It had volunteer engagement scripts in it. It had extra scripts for integrating with new partners. All of the different teams had commands that this chatbot could run, and this was a vital piece of our infrastructure, a surprisingly vital piece. But we were spending more time fighting the platform that we wrote the chatbot with than we were writing new commands and actually integrating things that our team needed. So over a weekend, one of our devs sat down and knocked out an example of what a chatbot program could look like that was designed for our specific needs. It worked out of the box, which was amazing, and we immediately transferred all of our work over to it. It took like a week, and then suddenly we can just add more commands. No more faffing about with trying to figure out what ErrorBot will and will not let us do. We can just add more stuff. And this was an incredible release. We could suddenly have so much more space, but it was because we outgrew what we previously had. So, number 5, building the dream. Everything up to this point has been about finding a team and community management and making sure you've got all your ducks in a row. Because if you get to this point, if you start actually throwing time and effort into building and you don't have all your ducks in a row, things are going to go wildly wrong. And they're going to go wildly wrong in ways that you cannot possibly foresee. Your experience is going to be different than mine, but I know for a fact you're not going to see this coming when this happens to you. You have to put as much effort as you can into making sure that everything is ready and your groundwork is as solid as it can be. So, with that, I have some suggestions. Number one, define a version 1.0. Because the thing about version 1.0 is that in order to have people get interested in your project, you have to have a project that people can get interested in. Which means you gotta release. You gotta have it out there. If you don't have anything out there, there's nothing for people to get excited about. There's nothing for you to get people interested with. You have to have something out there. So you can take a page from Tony Fadell, who is one of the co-inventors of the iPod and the iPhone. He was also a member of the original General Magic team, who, among other things, designed the concept for the modern smartphone 15 years before it was technologically possible, invented the USB standard, cloud, the cloud TM, emojis, and many, many other things. Ship as fast as possible, learn from the market so you can iterate quickly. This is obviously aimed more at commercial products, but the same basic vibe holds true for us. You have to get something out the door. Once you get something out the door, then you can iterate on it, you can build, you can add more features, you can get more people, you can get more interest, but you have to have something out the door. You have to have something that you can then show as, this is the thing I am doing. No one wants to join a project based on the things that you will do. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have an example of things that you are doing so that people can get excited. Along those lines, viciously cut out things that are cool but don't serve the purpose. For every project that I've ever worked on, in corporate America, in my personal work, in my work with Grapheus, the nonprofit, and Transcribers of Reddit, there have always been features that we love, that have a special place in my heart, that are so cool, and are completely useless in the grand scheme of things because they don't actually serve the purpose of furthering the passion. They're just something that we thought were cool. In writing, there's a theme called kill your darlings. Identify the things that you really love but don't serve the story. The same thing applies here. Kill your darlings. Be really, honestly, painfully vicious with understanding what is actually necessary to be in your stuff and what is not necessary. There is space for fun. Like, I'm not saying there's not space for fun, but understand where that space is and understand when it's a good time to actually implement that. I am almost done. So, the takeaways. Over this, there have been 5 things. Understand your passion, pop your bubble, find the right tools, create a framework, and then finally, build the dream. I spent a little over 6 years working on this. The work that we did was life-changing. We heard from people all over the world that were positively impacted by the work that us and our volunteers did. We helped people stay out of jail. We helped people get out of bed. We helped people get out of the psych ward. We helped people find meaning, and we helped people find comfort. Not every project is going to do that, but I feel really good that this one did, even if it didn't last forever, because not every project does. It's just part of life. But in all of this, don't forget to have fun. It is pretty important, and this is your passion, after all. It's not going to be fun every day, but it's going to be fun most of the time, and do try to have some fun. So, this is me. This is my cat, Ada. She's really cute and also a pain in the butt, and you can find me here, and even though she can't speak English, she would murder me if she found out I didn't put her in this. So, this is Evie. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's live.
Thank you, Joe. That was excellent. So we do not have time for questions.